And good day, everybody. This is Z Marcel Portu, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're recording this on January 31st, 2020. Hope everyone is having a good day wherever you're listening to the show. As always, we're broadcasting from Ackworth, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta. We're very happy to be with you today. Our topics today will start with Atlanta United. They've made some transactions in their preseason. We'll break down all those things in the that portion of the show. Then we'll talk about some technical state of Georgia athletics. We'll discuss Georgia State basketball and other news and notes from around the Peach State. Finally, we'll talk, two more things after that. We'll go into the Gridiron Blitz and talk about the preview, the Super Bowl taking place this Sunday between San Francisco and Kansas City, Eli Manning's retirement. And then finally, Miscellaneous Department, we will address Kobe Bryant and his tragic death, along with the 8 others on the helicopter crash, including his daughter Gianna and others. So we'll talk about that as well at the end of the show. And as always, want to follow everything that we're doing, head to Twitter and Instagram under Sports Inquirer, all one word. Search those social platforms. Just give us a like. Well, actually, don't like those. We'll get to the actually you can like some things on Instagram and Twitter if you're really feeling it. Give us a thumbs up. But if you want to follow us on those platforms, go ahead and search Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. Head to the mothership, though, thesportsinquirer.net. That's premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You'll be able to go there and get everything that we're doing. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to discuss Georgia State basketball. We were able to go to the game last night against South Alabama. So we have the full presser of head coach Rob Lanier. We also did exclusive interviews with Justin Roberts and Kane Williams, two players on the team earlier in the week before that contest took place. So make sure you head onto there and check it out. We also have the archives of Atlanta United's opening the preseason in Atlanta before they went down to Florida. So we have the pressers of manager Frank de Boer, along with players Brad Guzan, Jeff Larentowicz. Let's see, we also have Pity Martinez, Ezekiel Barco, and former Atlanta United player Julian Gressel as well. When we recorded that, he was still on the team. Obviously, he has moved on to DC United, and that'll be our main topic when we discuss Atlanta United after our break. But if you want to hear that presser as well and see it, you can head down there to our site and do a search and check it out. You can also go to YouTube and SoundCloud under the Sports Inquirer, and you'll get the audio on the SoundCloud, and then YouTube you'll see the video of all of our content. And finally, go to Facebook and our two pages, either Sports Inquirer, which is all one word, or The Sports Inquirer, which is three separate words. Head to either one of those, and you'll get all of our content there as well. We're going to take our first break of the show, and when we come back, we'll go into I want to call it the free kick or the offside trap. We're going to discuss some professional soccer here in the state of Georgia, specifically Atlanta, with the United here on the Sports Inquirer Show. All right, welcome back to the Sports Inquirer Show. Emar Sopertute here with you. Biggest transactions that have taken place since our last show are two fan favorites and two major contributors to the MLS Cup team of 2019 or 2018, excuse me, and also original players with Atlanta United are moving on to different locations. First, start with Julian Gressel. Atlanta United acquired up to $1.1 million in allocation money from DC United in exchange for Julian Gressel. In essence, it's a trade where Atlanta gets $1 million in their player pool, and Gressel gets an increase in his salary from making around 150,000 to 750,000, with the potential of making up to $1 million if he reaches some benchmarks. And that's really the essence of it. If you want to talk about target allotment money, you could break it down in those different ways, but that's really the basics of it. Really, the biggest thing with this is Gressel, 26 years old, prime of his career, was the most successful draft pick in the history of Atlanta United. Miles Robinson can make that stake or make that claim maybe in the next year or two. But from the number 8 pick in the MLS Super Draft, which ends up being a lot of times for teams, guys you can store in your developmental system or loan out or transfer out for some other assets. Gressel was a major contributor for Atlanta. Had 5 goals and 9 assists in 2017. He was named MLS Rookie of the Year. And then in the MLS Cup winning campaign in 2018, he had 14 assists, which led the team. And even in 2019, he had a career high 6 goals and 12 assists. His versatility was a major asset for Atlanta. We saw him start as far back in the field as a right back or even a left back position. We've seen him start as a midfielder, even a potential forward partner along with Joseph Martinez. I think his versatility will be missed tremendously by the team. And it's odd because, and we'll get to Tito Villalba in a minute, that writing was a little bit more on the wall than Gressel. It's tough when you look at if maybe it came down to money. Gressel, I don't think, wanted to leave the team, but he wanted a substantial increase for his production. If you look at his production, he was equaling the designated players in that $1 to $2 million range, and he was making the equivalent of a mid first round pick, which he was. But he really outplayed his contract. And if you go to our site and listen to the interview or the presser when he opened training camp, he addressed it immediately, saying he did not want to talk about the contract. You can tell the frustration with him, with Gressel, with management, and it just didn't seem to work out. I think another factor is the CBA, the negotiations between the collective bargaining agreement between the MLS Players Association and Atlanta United. It's tough for United to make a commitment to Gressel and to a lesser degree Villalba without a deal in place. Now, you had guys like Jeff Larentowicz, who pretty much were 10-5 guys. If you follow baseball, 10 years of service, 5 years with one team. It gives you a lot more flexibility as far as no trades and things like that. MLS has a similar type situation than that, like that, where Larentowicz was able, with his tenure in Major League Soccer, was able to sign for a certain amount of money and was able to re-sign really before this collective bargaining agreement is completed, and they're still dealing with that right now. The MLSPA and Major League Soccer. So you add all those things up, and you lose maybe your most valuable player outside of for the past 3 years, outside of Joseph Martinez and Brad Guzan. And you combine that with the departure of Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, who could arguably be in that MVP candidacy over the past 3 years. You lose a major asset and a guy, as I said, 26 years old, prime of his career, and he's not moving on to Europe or South America or to a bigger league. He's going right across a few state lines into Washington, D.C., stays in your same division. I think that hurts a lot of people. And it was odd seeing him and D.C. United, put pictures of him with the D.C. United uniform, him training in their facility. I don't get attached to players, try not to. But it is where you speak to a guy for 3 years consistently, and you're used to seeing him in those colors and that uniform, and then he moves on. With Miguel Almiron, when he moved on from Atlanta to Newcastle United in the English Premier League, it was kind of understood that, okay, he's moving on to Europe, he's taking that opportunity, he's going across the pond or across the Atlantic literally. So it's not like we're going to have to, and you're happy for him because he did get a really good big increase in his salary. So you look at that and it's like, okay, you understand economics. That's just, you want guys to stay, guys productive like an Almiron or Gressel for as long as they can, but things happen and you realize that. But when he goes to not necessarily your rival, but that same team in your conference that you're competing with for championships, that's very tough to see. So he moved on and did his thing, and you also lose Tito Villalba. It was announced officially today that he's moved on to Club Libertad in Paraguay. Tito, another guy in his mid-20s, 25 years old specifically, was another guy signed as a designated player with Atlanta United, made 96 appearances for the team with 21 goals, 24 assists. First year with the team, he started all 34 matches, 13 goals, and 11 assists. And the production and the amount of games played did dwindle or decline over the past 2 years. Made 28 appearances with 21 starts in 2018 when he made 5 postseason appearances in the MLS Cup winning campaign for Atlanta. And last year, he came into the season dealing with a hamstring injury, was just not able to get a good flow going into the year, and he only made 20 appearances. He started 10 games, scored 1 goal, and he did play in 2 postseason matches for Atlanta. What you lose with Villalba is maybe the fastest player on the entire team, and also a valuable wing player that can go down the flank and take pressure off of Joseph Martinez when he goes down the middle of the field. So you lose that speed and that element to your squad. Also, a player that's been with the squad since the very beginning, another fan favorite. But I think with him, we don't know what the fee is, but I'm sure it's probably parallel or a little bit more than what he was making currently. So, and he does go to South America. Once again, the Argentinian does return to South America. You do have to consider those factors too with a lot of these players. We look at it in the United States, which is where we're based, and you look at it like, okay, you go from a lot of players in whatever sport you're following. The majority of them are probably from North America, whether it's the United States or Canada. If you follow football, you follow basketball, I know the European and South American influence is strong in those sports, but a lot of guys are from the United States or from Canada and are used to being here. The language is not an issue, things like that. You gotta look at a guy like Villalba, and I don't know if I'm sure he's very comfortable in Atlanta. I never heard any issues of him being angry or disappointed being here. But he does, he's from Argentina, so he does go back to that region of the world, and he gets to play in a Spanish-speaking country. And I'm sure the league is pretty solid in Paraguay, and he gets to compete for some different trophies and different things. So, but still, you look at it overall, you don't want to lose guys in the prime of their careers at the ages that they are, and you do lose some of that. We're going to practice next week and talk to the players and coaches specifically about these moves and what they mean for the future of the team. But we were able to go down to practice before they headed down to Florida 2 weeks ago, and were able to speak with some players, starting with Jeff Larentowicz. He discussed us about the second year of Atlanta United being led by Frank de Boer.
Just like you just said, there's not going to be that transition period. I think that it was pretty clear what we were doing at the end of the year from, let's say, maybe July on. I think that we were extremely successful, and obviously it ends fairly poorly, I think, but there won't be that period where it's like, okay, who am I, what do I want to do, what are we trying to do? I think that obviously they have a good idea of what works and what the league looks like, and we'll just continue to build on that.
And here's Brad Guzan talking about preseason expectations for Atlanta United after a disappointing loss in the Eastern Conference Finals to Toronto to end their postseason campaign in Major League Soccer. They were able to still compete in the CONCACAF Champions League, win the U.S. Open Cup, and accomplish some things there. Also win the Copa Libertad, not Copa Libertadores, they win some other competitions as well. So Brad Guzan, though, discussed about the end of the season not ending the way that it wanted to, and moving on to 2020.
There's a huge difference. No, I think we understand that last year wasn't good enough, and we fell short of our goal. I've always said that this is a club that wants to be a winning club and a club that competes for trophies and titles, and we want to be the best, plain and simple. And so last year we weren't. And this time last year we understood that the championship year was behind us, and we had to roll our sleeves up and do it all again. Unfortunately, fell a little bit short. But going into this year, same attitude, same mentality of we want to win. We want to win everything that we're involved in. We want to win every time we step on the pitch. It's about winning games. No, I wouldn't say shake it up. I think when you go away for a bit of time, come back, smiles and high fives and all that at the beginning, but then slowly you get into the thick of it. For us, when you only have a few new faces, the smiles last for a couple minutes, the high fives last for a couple minutes, and then it's competitive and it's intense and it's fighting and knowing that when we step on the field, training pitch or game match, a game field, it's about winning, it's about competing and battling. So, I wouldn't say, yes, it's second year under Frank, but for us, it's trying to get his messages across to us, but also all the players understanding what we're trying to do.
And speaking of Frank de Boer, here are his thoughts on the preseason and what he expects from the squad as they get into training camp.
LeBron James said it once, the off-season is my real season. I want to see that from our guys. We had 3 normal trainings during the whole season last season. So that means this is the period that we have to get to our strength and hopefully our top level. So that's for me the most important. And technically, I think I want to see that we can really swap from 3 in the back to 4 in the back and recognize those moments when to press or not to press. And so, but I'm confident that that we don't start from scratch. But what I saw also against Toronto the last game, we did well also before that. So I'm confident that we can go more in smaller details. Even better.
So that was manager Frank de Boer talking about what he wanted to see from the team over the next few weeks as they continue through training camp. When we come back, we're going to discuss the technical state of Georgia athletics as we break down some news and notes in the world of college sports in the great state of Georgia here on the Sports Inquirer Show. All right, welcome back to Sports Inquirer Show. Marcel here back with you. Let's talk about some Georgia State basketball. The team was able to win a hard-fought 76-73 home victory over South Alabama on January 20th. The team was back and forth affair, but 2 critical baskets and a charge taken by Kane Williams in the last minute of regulation were the catalyst for the victory. Corey Allen, the redshirt junior, had a team-high 19 points and 4 rebounds, made all 8 of his free throws. And Kane Williams, as I mentioned earlier, had 15 points and 5 assists in the contest. The big thing for the Panthers, they're starting to see more zone, and we talked about that with head coach Rob Lanier before the contest, where more teams are playing zone against them and forcing the Panthers to shoot from the outside. There are 7 of 28 from the field, 25% on three-pointer attempts, and they struggled in that regard, but still were able to come back and get the victory against South Alabama. Let's hear from head coach Rob Lanier, his thoughts on the matchup, and then we'll talk about it further.
Proud of the guys as always. I think the last couple of games we were in a situation with backs against the wall. Earlier in the season when we got into those moments, you could look in the guys' eyes in the timeout, and we weren't very confident in those situations. And I think the last couple of games we've displayed a belief in ourselves and a character that when things aren't going well, we can still find a way. So tonight was good. A lot of credit to Richie and his team, South Alabama. They were down a couple of key guys, and they really did dictate to us the tempo of the game and the way the game was to be played. And they played with great confidence. I think they outplayed us for the vast majority of the game. But I'm proud of the guys that we found a way to win, and we just got to get better. I like that we find a way to win, but I prefer if we play well. That would be nice. So that's the next step for us, is to go out and really play the way we're capable of playing. We'd like to do that sometime soon.
And we actually, and let's get to Coach Lanier discussing the team right now at the midway point of conference play and just what he wants to see from them before we get to previewing Troy.
Yeah, we're one of the worst rebounding teams in the country. We're one of the worst teams in the league and in the country at putting our opponents on the free throw line. So some of those positive stats, 3-point field goal percentage, some of those things we have in our favor,
they get neutralized by those other things. And if we can improve in our transition defense, defending without fouling and rebounding the basketball, and some of our strengths aren't going to matter as much. But if we can improve in those areas, then maybe we've got a chance to do something.
You also have a unique stat. You lead the conference in steals and assists per game. Talk about the backcourt and having that unique statistic. So you're distributing the ball very well, but also defending the perimeter well as far as your steals.
Yeah, I mean, we're active. We got guys who have good instincts, and guys that, we do emphasize trying to get deflections. So those things have been good for us. Sharing the basketball, we've talked about before, is a byproduct of a team that buys into defense. And I think being a good defensive team requires a level of selflessness that I think carries over into your offense. And I think that's why you see that. We work hard on D, you get the ball, and then you share it. And I think I still think we got a ways to go defensively on the ball. But collectively, I do think there is at least an understanding of the importance of team defense. And I think that has, when we're defending well, it appears that we share the ball better.
So that was Coach Lanier talking about what he wants to see the team get better at, or what they've been doing pretty okay from at the midpoint portion of Sunbelt play, which continues tomorrow on February 1st when they host Troy. The Troy beat the Panthers by double digits earlier on in the season in Troy, Alabama. So here's Coach Lanier previewing the contest taking place tomorrow.
This team and kind of your approach coming into Saturday's game.
You know what? Boy, Scott Cross is a heck of a coach, and I knew that. And I knew going in there that they were going to be good. And I felt like going into that game that our guys, our lack of maturity led us to thinking that the game was going to follow a script. We're at the top of the league. They're near the bottom of the league. So here's how the movie's going to play out. And they didn't go by the script. And all of a sudden, we're looking at one another saying, whoa, we're in the middle of a really good game. How did this happen? Right? And it happened because there's a really good coach with good players who's building a program that could beat anybody. And this is conference play. That's the way it works. And who are we to think that it should be otherwise? Right? And this is what I'm talking about, why humility is such a big part of how we're trying to run our program, because you have to be mature enough and you have to respect the game enough to treat every opponent like it's a real challenge. And so this will be one of two times that we'll get an opportunity to have a rematch against a team that previously beat us, because we don't get to play Arkansas State again. So I hope there won't be any need for motivation, and I'm not going to waste my energy trying to motivate them. We're going to have a plan. We're going to go out and execute the plan, and if they need to be motivated, then we're going to get beat by them again.
So that was Coach Lanier previewing the contest coming up against Troy. So the Panthers are still second place in the conference in the Sun Belt, but are finding a way to try to move up with some home victories, starting with South Alabama last night and Troy potentially on February 1st. When we come back, we're going to do our final segment of the show. We're going to combine Gridiron Blitz and Miscellaneous Department just with a free-flowing style on the Sports Inquirer Show /podcast. All right, welcome back to the Sports Inquirer Show. Emar Soperdute here with you. Yeah, Gridiron Blitz. Yeah, here we go. All right, Gridiron Blitz, pretty straightforward. The final matchup of the year. I'm going to deal with some technical difficulties. Let's see. All right, we're good now. Yeah, we're good. All right, so just real quick, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. Kansas City has the best player in Pat Mahomes. San Francisco has the better team overall. If you did a ranking of the top 20, I think Pro Football Focus may have done that, where they did the top 20 players in the contest. And I think San Francisco had about 14 of them or 15. That sounds pretty right, because outside of Hill and Mahomes and Travis Kelce, maybe Jones, Chris Jones for Kansas City. Outside of those guys, most of the other players that you want to look at, from Bosa to Garoppolo, Richard Sherman, the running backs with Tevin Coleman, Kittle, the tight ends. You go down the list, you're probably going to pick more 49ers than Chiefs if you did the top 20. I think Mahomes will have a big game. He's going to, when I say big, he's going to get his yardage. But I think ultimately San Francisco is going to find a way to limit them to field goals instead of touchdowns. And I see another slow start by Kansas City. They started very slow against Houston in the playoffs. Another slow start against Tennessee. Both those games, they're trailing in the first quarter by double digits. Cannot have that against San Francisco. So I'm going to take the 49ers to win the Super Bowl over the Chiefs. And we're going to conclude today's show. Just some thoughts on Kobe Bryant. If you're listening to this show, you know all the details about his untimely passing in the helicopter crash on, I want to get the day correct, on January 26th. The aircraft included Gianna Bryant, Gigi, his daughter, as well as 7 other passengers. All of them involved with the youth basketball team that Bryant really funded and was a part of with his daughter. It's just a sad situation, and it's just so surprising. It was one of those things where I was in the gym on Sunday, and for some reason that Pro Bowl was playing on the TV, and I heard Joe Tessitore talk about trying to confirm the passing of Kobe Bryant, and it's just like, really, what? And then sure enough, you turn to the other stations that are in the gym, the CNNs of the world, and you get confirmation. I'm on my phone, and you see the tweets and other things going on, and you hear the news. Just shocking and just sad, and it seems like when it first happens, like every 5 minutes, like, wow, Kobe's gone, and it's not that bad now. The shock of it. It's been a few days, but still, about every hour or two, you just think about it. It's like, wow, he has passed away. So, but it's just very sad. He's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. I personalize it. I'm 38 years old. He passed away at 41. We're only 3 years apart. So I've seen his whole journey from high school to the Lakers, the Olympics, his championships, the highs and lows, from his issues in Colorado to redemption, winning championships, to him becoming a father, a proud father, becoming involved in youth sports and a lot of levels, specifically basketball. Him doing the detail, I guess the detail show on ESPN, breaking down games. We talked about soccer earlier with Atlanta United, but he was a very big football fan internationally. Obviously, I think growing up in Italy in his youth was a big contribution to that. But just recently, he signed a deal, I think, with the LA Galaxy or with MLS, doing a partnership, and he did a fluent interview in Spanish. He touched so many people in so many ways, and you see the reactions from Jerry West, Shaquille O'Neal, to and guys who really knew him. I never met him. I'd send a few Hawks games for Sports Inquirer purposes when the Lakers were playing, so I was able to attend some of his pressers. But but it's something like that. But still, he's a guy from. I said, I'm 38, and my guy was, well, as far as basketball players, really sports idols, was the Michael Jordan. It was like the 90s was the Michael Jordan era, and it's interesting. You hear older people talk right now, and when I say older, I'm saying people from their 50s and 60s. Yeah, as far as their ages, they didn't realize the impact that Kobe had on this generation of current NBA guys who are all 35 years old and younger. A lot of them in their 20s. Kobe was their guy. That was their Jordan. That's really the best kind of way to put it in a basketball sense. So the outpouring of emotions was not surprising. And you saw him have a lot of personal relationships with current players, from locally here in Atlanta with Trae Young and Vince Carter. Guys, Vince Carter, there's parallel ages. They came into the NBA together as far as age range and had a lot of interaction to the younger guys like Trae Young, who's 21 years old and was developing a relationship with Kobe and his daughter. So you have that spectrum. And you have a lot of coaches that dealt with them. So it was just a sad situation. And I think it hurts more when you look at it from a father-daughter relationship, where I'm not a father, but we all have either a niece or a nephew that's really close to us in some way, or a sibling, a younger sister or a brother. and you can relate to that as far as him being a father, being involved and going to the basketball games or whatever sport of interest that you may have had interactions with a young son or a young man or woman. And I thought about my times driving my niece to basketball games and seeing her things and other things like that. So I think people really personalized what happened in that regard. But condolences to him, his family, and the other families and friends and other people connected with the others that were in the accident. So it was just a very bad way to have things happen. But if you want to put a positive on it, which is very tough to do with literal death, you're seeing a lot of people. Two things. One, I think you're trying to see people be nicer to each other, give hugs and kisses and like I care about you, I love you, and try to end a lot of beefs and squabbles and things like that. Even Kendrick Perkins, it was funny with Kevin Durant 2 weeks ago, it was like a lead story in some sports outlets about they're complaining or they're arguing on Twitter, and then Perkins right afterwards, after the deaths, was like, let's squash the beef, let's get along, because life is short, man. We all can go at any time, and I think this is a reminder, of that we are on this earth for a certain amount of time. We don't know when that end date is for a majority of us, so we need to cherish it while we're here. And I like seeing the second thing is, just the outpouring of love as far as girl dads or dad girl. I mean, I've seen the hashtag of that going on. I think that's really good. That you see it. Bryant was very focused on women's athletics, so I think that's a good spin or a good thing, or if you want to look at it in that way. But yeah, it's a tough thing in the sports world, and this the world is dealing with right now because he was an international superstar in a basketball. I mean, he really was in that realm of Serena Williams, the Tiger Woods, LeBron James, as far as guys who are known all around the world, all continents and all countries. So yeah, it's tough to deal with, but we'll try. We're all trying to move on or not move on, but acknowledge the situation, show appreciation for those who have passed, and try to take that energy towards our endeavors in the future. And I think that's how we're going to end the show today. Thanks for listening. And if you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the sportsinquirer.net. You get all of our links for everything that we're doing on our site. And that's just the best way to keep up with all that we're doing. Thanks for listening once again. Good fight and good night.